Hi. Oh, I'm so excited to be back again. This is our podcast and video series from the Munn Avenue Press. We help authors publish and market their books and even create podcasts like this one now. And I'm delighted to introduce one of our authors who just recently published her book, Empress, Making the Impossible Possible. And her name is Renata Merino. And I'll tell you a little bit about her, and then you can hear from her herself. So Renata is a venture capitalist, professional speaker, and 30-year operator, MBA Merit Scholar from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, student athlete from Bowdoin College, and a leader for women as the CEO of Blazing Babes. Isn't that a great name? Renata's inspired audiences globally, not only with her impeccable background and life experiences, but more with her aura and inspiration. Whether you meet her in person with a warm embrace or hear her profound insights on reinvention, overcoming adversity, or healing past trauma, Renata brings her authentic self to her audiences worldwide. So we are lucky today to have Renata and her authentic self right here. So Renata, welcome to the Munn Avenue Press, Munn Avenue Muse podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No, it's delightful to have you, and it was such a pleasure to work with you on publishing your new book, which I know is a very personal mission for you. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book and maybe a little bit of the background of the story?
Sure. So it was just historically, I've always been an advocate for women. And since I was in seventh grade, attending Newton Country Day School of the Sacred Heart in Newton, Massachusetts, I've always been an advocate for women, president of my high school. So very just a good representation for women, Girl Scout leadership award. So very pro women, pro girls. And so in 2017, I filed for divorce and through a challenging 15-year marriage towards the end. And I remember being at 1871 Chicago, which is a accelerator for women and men entrepreneurs. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. And my fellow entrepreneur colleagues were saying, when are you going to write a book? You have to write a book. This makes so much sense for you. It just amplifies your mission, your life purpose. And so I said, I will. I just need to get my footing and I get my life in order before this book. So the book was in my head in 2017. And until I could get footing and figuring out what my life is going to be and making sure I could take care of myself and my kids and figuring out where my career was going, I couldn't really start writing until I was ready.
Yeah. So what's ready look like? I mean, I speak to so many people that have a book in them. I wish I could write a book. I don't have the time to write the book, but something happens that triggers it and says, I have to write this book, right? Was there any particular thing that triggered you to say, I have to write it now, I have to start now?
I think my journey becoming an author has been half mystical, half perfect timing, and half emotionally ready. So the book was in my head in 2017 with encouragement from others. In 2019, as I was navigating my way to reinventing myself, my career with redoing my LinkedIn, hiring a career coach, and really focusing on other things, the book was still behind in the back of my brain, but I didn't have time like most people because I was dealing with life. And as a single mom, my kids, and trying to handle them in school and then transition from, from married to divorced, single parent. Um, and then all of a sudden, one day, I don't know where I was, I got a hit, like an inspiration of the outline of the book. And this was in 2019. I was in the middle of my day. I don't know where I was. And I literally spent about 10 minutes doing a brain dump just with the outline, the names of the chapters. And then I left it on my laptop until January 2022.
And then you came back to it, and it was
And
still good, right?
actually, it was still there. But full disclosure, I was approached by an editor through LinkedIn saying, "Are you going to write a book?" And this is based on posts that I had done about my story. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, I guess this is when I start writing. So my writing really happened on the weekends when I didn't have my kids. So I was still doing full-time Monday through Friday regular life. And then when I really dedicated my time to writing on the weekends when I did not have my children.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but the question of when do writers write, especially if they're fully occupied with kids and careers and things like that. And I'll just share a couple of quick stories with you. One was I met a very successful writer. She'd written several books. She was a full-time lawyer and had 4 kids. So it was like, when do you find time to write? And for her, it was, she got up at 4 in the morning every day and wrote for an hour or two before the kids got up. Like you, another writer I know who's written 10 books, has a full-time job in bank security. He writes on the weekends, and he'll write all weekend. I mean, he'll really do it. With me, I'm in the middle of writing my 7th book. I try and I'm One Avenue Press, thank goodness, kept me very busy. I try and write for like an hour in the morning every day. Otherwise, I lose the thread. I forget where I was at, and then I have to start all over again, which I've done a few times too. But so tell me, back to your story. To the extent you're comfortable sharing it, I mean, there's some pretty hard stuff that happened to you, wrapped around your divorce and that transition. I mean, can you share a little bit of what that was like? And sometimes, often the bad stuff leads to good stuff, which is really what the book is about. But what was the bad stuff?
Yeah, I think, like I said, part of the journey of when I was quote unquote ready emotionally to write, sometimes we write. I think I had my higher self was telling me not to start writing when I was angry. And so, or sad. Well, I mean, I just wanted to write with a lens of grace, out of respect for my children. I'm an expert at knowing my audience because I've been a corporate executive. I've been on stage and understanding who your audience is and how do you tell the story, whether you're pitching a product, whether you're telling your own personal story. And I had done a TED Talk in 2022 prior to writing. And so again, knowing that my parents would be reading the book, my parents also saw the TED Talk, my former husband, my children, my grandchildren. I had to make sure I was ready to write it with a lens of grace, and professionalism, and not, even though people in my life may have hurt me, without reason, and without them maybe even knowing they were hurting me. And as everyone knows, hurt people hurt people. And I think until we get to a place where we understand that, you can't really start writing. And also, full disclosure, I had a lawyer review my book, just to make sure I wasn't gonna hurt anyone or tarnish anyone's reputation. And how can you, and there's a way to say it. There's a way to say something that happened to you without hurting someone else. So, and it's not beating around the bush. It's
Right.
being, it is telling the truth, but telling it in an eloquent way, in a graceful way. So yeah, I think what happened, I think it's, if you're married, usually whether it's death, divorce, career loss, cancer, sickness, whatever life bomb happens to you, a lot of us say it's unfair. Like, how did I end up here? This is not fair. Why did this happen to me? I'm a good person. Um, you know, and my chapter 1 of my book is called Rock Bottom, hitting rock bottom. We've all hit rock bottom at one point in our life. And being angry that this happened, and you have to get over that anger. And I think in a marriage, full disclosure, especially 15-year marriage, people change, and you either change together or you change apart. And you don't go into a marriage thinking that, and not all marriages, some marriages change together and they based on different stages of life. And sometimes you try to resolve it when you feel like those paths are diverging. And if it can't be mended or you can't come together and be on the same page, you have to make a decision. So I think, usually what was happening, it was how we were communicating or lack of communication, and the treatment really was kind of the final straw that broke the camel's back.
Sure. And and I'm not looking to dwell on this at all, but I do, I applaud you because in telling your story, you do take an emotional risk, right? And I think the best writing, even, not just nonfiction, but in fiction, is where the authors take some risks. You don't know. It's scary to write a book, right? You don't know what people are going to think, what your reviewers are going to say, and and as you mentioned, family, friends, kids. Or if they read the book 20 years from now, what are they going to think of you? But I think if you have that story inside you, you just have to. It's better to just put it out there. It is a risk, and you see what happens, right? But the good news is that somehow you use those difficulties to leverage yourself up, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? How you've accomplished a tremendous amount. At some point, it turned, right? You made a decision. Tell us about that.
Yes, I think it has, especially when trauma happens to you, regardless of what it is. I think there's a turning point of acceptance. I think what are the 4 stages of grief? I think it's like anger, sadness. You get to an level of acceptance and forgiveness for yourself. A lot of people say, do you forgive the other person? I mean, you could, but you forgive for yourself so you don't harbor resentment. I think that's the turning point, is getting to that place. And it's not, and it's funny, when I was seeing a therapist during the initial divorce, because I was a mess in the beginning when I was at rock bottom, I kept asking her, could you give me a timeline of when the crying's going to end? I said, I'm really busy with my life and the crying is distraction. I need to get moving. And I'm such a type A person, overachiever, that the crying, she said, I really can't. And I think what I came to terms with is, and I say this on LinkedIn a lot, in my newsletter, and I just say this on stage, is no one realizes that your career could be plateaued, or you could reach a ceiling if you do not heal some of the bad things that happened to you as a kid or growing up. And healing means crying it out and getting angry, and nobody really wants to revisit those things. So the turning point was doing the crying and the anger, and a lot of it was running on Lake Michigan, doing ultra marathons, running the New York City Marathon. I mean, physical activity and challenges are the way I get out my anger and my sadness. And I've caught myself in a snowstorm crying in a blizzard by myself, or being on vacation, taking myself on vacations alone, where people are like, that's crazy. Who would do that? And crying on the beach for days. I mean, so that's the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that I had to do to get to that turning point.
Yeah, and you know, in all aspects of what you do, you're not reluctant to ask for help, like a therapist or an editor, or you know, whatever. You know, you build teams. I noticed that's part of your strategy too, right? And that was true publishing the book. So maybe you can talk about what it was like to go through writing, editing, cover design, publishing a book. What was that whole process like for you?
Sure, sure. I think the first thing I think is like you were mentioning and I mentioned is figuring out when you're writing. So, and what works for your schedule and not just saying, making excuse. It's like working out. I don't have time to work out. You have to actually get up the hour early or go right on a Saturday. And then just writing and not being so critical of what you're writing and maybe just like brain dump or just even like writing like it could be right each, and maybe you do chapter by chapter, whatever kind of what you said. One thing I did realize that was frustrating was you lose the train of thought and I actually did, it was terrible. It was probably the worst editing experience, but I was saying the same story numerous times in different, I said, well, did I write about that? Well, so a lot of the editing had to say, oh, go through the entire book all at once to see that I told that story once already, and the reader's going to be annoyed because I already told it. So, because, you know, if you can't write the whole book all at once and you don't remember what you wrote, the other thing that was really helpful was creating a spreadsheet. It's for a memoir. I mean, maybe if you have the book in your head, maybe creating a spreadsheet with the chapters and just the general, this is the crux of the story, the mini story I'm going to tell with the lesson. I mean, that's kind of what I did. And like the order of events of what's going to happen. It's almost like a guideline. It's not an outline. It's taking the outline a little bit deeper and putting stories and facts per chapter. And then that keeps you from repeating. So I think for me, having that, and then also having an editor, an amazing editor help me who had written books before and helped other people guide me since I had never written a book.
Right.
And I didn't know what the process was. That really honed me in on, and then some of it I would write and she's like, this, write it. She would say, no, write it differently. Or, you know, we need to add some softer stories here. This is too factual. So I was like, this is what happened. And this is what happened. And she's like, why don't we make it a little softer? And because just so the reader can ease into the next chapter.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes total sense. And you mentioned the spreadsheet. I use a spreadsheet too. I mean, I do some outlining, but after I write a chapter, I fill in the blocks on the spreadsheet, which is okay, the name of the chapter, how many words are in the chapter, because I want to keep my word count. I write fiction, so it's whose point of view is it? When did it take place? The chronology, who are the characters in it? And it's very helpful when you go back to figure out where you are and not repeat. So that's absolutely true. And we had some fun designing your cover too. What did that evoke for you? What did that mean for you?
Sure, sure. So I'll tell you the story about that photo because that actually helped a lot with the cover. So I had become a model at age 50, right after I did my TED Talk. I did a photo shoot with one of the top photographers that shoots all the celebrities in Chicago, Maria Ponce. She's amazing. And I have a hair and makeup artist that's been with me for 10 years doing all my Blazing Babes events. And then my professional photographer that shoots all our events for Blazing Babes. And they all came together and I hired them and we did a full day of 15 different outfits. And it was my coming out of becoming a model, a brand ambassador, being paid to wear amazing, luxurious clothing for major brands. And my hair and makeup artist knew that I was going to be writing a book, and she's the one that came up with this amazing idea. She knew that my story was about a come up from a before and after, like hitting rock bottom and then coming out as this celebrity, whatever, superstar. She said, let's get a table. This didn't even come from the photographer. This came from my makeup artist because she knows my story and has been with me for so long. Let's get a table. Let's get a black sheet of paper. Let's put a glass over it. Put your head, come down and lay on the table. We're going to see a reflection. We'll take a picture, a photo of you smiling, and then a photo of you sleep with your eyes closed. And we're going to show the before and after. So I happen to have that photo when you were ready to start designing the book. So that really helped a lot because I knew my story. I had the photo. It was ready to go. And I think we changed the name. I think we changed the name of the book, and it was just perfect. And I can talk about the name as well. But doing the design was seamless. I mean, with working with you was unbelievable. I mean, easy. I think we only had one edit. I mean, it was beautifully done. I think I wrote like maybe a short Word document of let's call it brand description or look and feel of the book. I wanted sophistication, Hollywood, elegant, and you guys nailed it.
Yeah. No, it was fun to do, and it's amazing the power of a cover. I mean, yes, for the reader, or they come to your Amazon or Barnes and Noble page, and it evokes something, which I think your cover definitely does. But it also does something for the author. Because we usually start the cover before the book's really done, and it helps you sort of visualize in your own mind. Okay, this is kind of what it looks like, because before it was just words. Now it's images, and you also have a very cool photo on the back cover. It's sort of a casual photo. I really like that one too. So that was kind of cool too. So I think the other thing too is the look of the book is so important. When I was going to publish my book, I had like 9 interested agents in my first book, and because I didn't want to wait 2 years for it to come out, I ended up publishing it myself, which landed up being Mun Avenue Press eventually. But I was committed that our covers and the interior and everything was going to look as good or better than the top traditional publishers do, because I think it's sort of part of the reading experience. If the pages look good, if the book feels good, it just enhances the content of the book. So and you together, I think we accomplished that. So that was great.
Yeah.
So it's your first book and everything, but you've been through the experience, and there's people that might be listening to this that are thinking about writing a book or in the middle of writing a book. We have several authors we're working with now who are just finishing their books. What advice would you give them, having gone through this process? Is there anything maybe you would do differently, or anything you think it was important to figure out when you were doing this?
I think for me, I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so I think it was challenging because I kept finding errors. And I mean, I think it depends what type of book you're writing. I mean, mine's a memoir, and it was very sensitive, and I think legal was a big issue for me. So I think hiring a lawyer was the smartest move I've ever made for this book, because a lot of the things we changed on how we would say something. So having other lenses, depending on what type of book you're, for example, I mean, I'm right now speaking to, I don't know if it was you or someone else who recommended, I can't remember because so many people have been part of this process, including yourself and others, but I'm speaking to a screenwriter because I want to make this into a movie or documentary. But if that's the case and you have a thriller that you're writing, I would even say while you're writing or having someone in the movie business, if that's something, a vision of yours, potentially, or even if it's not, you want to make it feel like a thriller, why not have someone read it, your manuscript? I just feel like thinking outside the box and having other lens people read it, not just regular readers. I'm talking about people who can bring other creative lenses into your book, I think would be smart for me. It was the lawyer for me. Um, and changing some of the names. Like, do you really think we should say her? She wasn't really nice to you. I said, let's change the name. So again, for me, it was the lawyer. The other thing for me was the lawyer suggesting that I get it copyrighted so I can own the publishing rights internationally because I'm Latin, I'm Latina. I have my 90% of my family is Mexican. I have dual citizenship, and there's a lot of Latin women that this story can resonate with. And so being able to sell it in other countries and getting the copyright was important for me.
Yeah. We make sure too that we copyright in the author's name everything we publish, for sure. And not every author needs a lawyer. I just want to clarify that.
Oh, yeah.
But in your case,
Yeah.
because you were naming real people, you wanted to be careful about that. And I think that makes total sense. So tell us what you're working on now. I know you have a sequel in mind. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but so I wanted to say, yeah, so right now I'm not working on the second book. I actually have a goal of the next time I'm going to be writing my book, I'm going to be sitting on my new house in Nantucket on the front porch in an Adirondack chair, wrapped in a wool blanket, a patchwork. I have a vision, a patch overlooking the ocean on my computer. That's the next time I want to even just start writing the second book, because there is a sequel. But I don't want to say what it is. I want to keep it under wrap. But right now I'm working a couple things, paid speaking engagements around the world. I'm speaking and doing my first book signing at the Women in Tech conference in Paris next week. So I am looking to take the stage across the country, around the world, to universities, to women's conferences, to talk about my story, to talk to younger women, and joining a speaking bureau and being able to speak on overcoming adversity and reinventing your life is my focus. I'm also a CEO of a women's female founder community that's 10 years old. We're relaunching nationally. It's called Blazing Babes. I'd mentioned it in my book, helping women launch companies, whether it's a consulting business, a service, a tech, a brick and mortar. We were launching nationally, and then coupled with that, I'm a venture capitalist. So I invest in early stage women-owned startups in the health and women's health space. So really, really focused on speaking. And the other thing right now is joining a corporate board. So I'm interviewing for some really amazing companies, and I really want to be able to give my 30 years of operations in a mission impact company that supports women. So I'm working on that right now, and then the book is going to come once I'm sitting on that porch.
Yeah, well, good. That's a good goal, and visualizing it, maybe it will come. So, well, Renata, this has been so wonderful, and I appreciate your taking the time to do it. You can find Renata's brand new book, Empress: Making the Impossible Possible, on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, your local bookseller, and everywhere. I look forward to working with you on the second book. We're the Munn Avenue Press. We help authors publish, market, and sell their books. We even do podcasts like this, so you can contact us if you want some help with that. Please do click the like button or subscribe and share with your friends. I'm looking also for this podcast to appeal not just to writers, but to readers who are interested in the story behind the story. That I was always interested in the story behind the story. What happens backstage, and I thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for all your hard work. You've been great, and I would recommend you to all the authors out there. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope we can work together in the future.
Great. Thank you so much.